Okay, so we're going to be talking tonight about anti-inflammatory foods, or healing foods that fight inflammation and prevent chronic disease. And I'm honestly very excited about this presentation, this topic, because I've been doing a lot of research and reading about this and living it out in our own home. And it is fascinating what you can learn about this topic. And it is a topic that a lot of people are talking about. Today, there's a lot of interest on it. A lot of articles are coming out. Just last year, National Geographic did this special issue called Anti-Inflammation, the Science of Inflammation and Ways to Treat It. Time Magazine recently did a special looking at this. And then you'll find other journals are doing things on the anti-inflammation diet and what is there. And even some of these headings, beat disease and feel amazing. This one says, boost health and feel your best. Eat to prevent disease. Drop pounds fast, stress less, and live longer. Sounds pretty good, doesn't it? So that's why we're here. So let's start off by asking just a very basic question. What is inflammation? So here's the definition I'm going to give. Inflammation is a protective response of your body to recover from bacterial and viral infections, as well as toxins, to repair tissues, and heal itself from physical injury. So basically, inflammation is your body trying to heal and deal with some kind of problem. Okay, so actually inflammation is not a bad thing. Okay, there are two types of inflammation. The first is acute inflammation, and this you know when you have twisted your ankle, pulled something in your knee, sprained or something like that, and it begins to get red and warm as blood flow starts increasing to this injured area. Your blood vessels start to dilate in the injured area. Liquid or fluid starts to leak out of your blood vessels, and that creates swelling. And the swelling creates pain, right? So these are like the four markers of inflammation: redness, heat, swelling, and pain. And if you have these in your body, pain, swelling, you can know there's some kind of inflammation going on, and this is your body signaling to you, we've got some inflammation to deal with. And it may be something that's just going to take care of itself in a short amount of time. So when you get, let's say, a cut or an injury, or maybe a sore throat, that's another form of inflammation. Your innate immune response kicks in, starts sending white blood cells to the area. These produce inflammatory cytokines to fight the infection. This is like those first responders. And then more white blood cells come called neutrophils, and these start killing disease cells and clearing them away and guarding against more invaders. And so all of this is very good. This is how God designed your body to heal when you get injured. However, when inflammation lingers for more than a few days or weeks and continues to produce these inflammatory cytokines, it can lead to chronic inflammation. And this becomes the breeding ground for disease. So chronic inflammation, you can think of it like this. It's like the light switch gets turned into the on position, and all these inflammatory cytokines start flowing to the area and are activated, but they never get turned off. They just keep working and keep being sent, and there's too many of them and they stay too long. And now the inflammation begins to damage your body's tissues, and that very damage can now trigger more inflammation. So you have this like vicious cycle where inflammation is constantly being produced, and it never goes away. And this is when real damage can start to happen to your body. So this little chart kind of gives an example what acute inflammation, what things might cause it: trauma, an allergic reaction, a chemical, frostbite, okay, cuts. These are examples of chronic inflammation. And I'm guessing that some of you are here tonight because these are things that you or deal with, or someone you know deals with. Things like arthritis, or an autoimmune disease, or a cardiovascular issue, or things like fibromyalgia or lupus. There are lots of different things that are forms of chronic inflammation. Now, how can you know if you have chronic inflammation? Well, you can look at some of the symptoms and see if these are you're experiencing certain things like skin issues or insulin resistance, so you're diabetic, poor digestion, brain fog, low energy. These can all be signals that your body is telling you you are in a state of inflammation. A recent report in the journal Frontiers in Medicine suggests that approximately 35% of American adults suffer from systemic or chronic inflammation. The number is highest among Black Americans at 50%, and Hispanics are at 46%. So about 1 out of 3 or 1 out of 2 Americans is suffering from chronic inflammation. And this helps to explain why we got so many different major diseases in our country. So chronic inflammation can manifest itself as an autoimmune disease. And here's some examples of autoimmune diseases: rheumatoid arthritis, multiple sclerosis or MS, ulcerative colitis, IBS, irritable bowel, Crohn's, celiac, lupus, and psoriasis. Now, in an autoimmune disease, chronic inflammation has stimulated your immune system to the point that rather than attacking a foreign enemy, your body sees your own body as the enemy, and it begins to attack itself. And that's really sad, isn't it? So your immune system is confused. It doesn't recognize that out there as the enemy. It sees you as the enemy, and so everything is being attacked from within. And that can lead to some very debilitating conditions. Chronic inflammation can lead to metabolic syndrome, which is a cluster of conditions that include high blood pressure, high blood sugar or glucose, A1Cs, excess body fat around your waist, and abnormal cholesterol levels. If you have 3 or more of these, like all of them or at least 3 of them, you are considered to have metabolic syndrome, and you are at increased risk for heart disease, stroke, and type 2 diabetes. So these are all forms of inflammation. If we can get the inflammation under control, you'll no longer have metabolic syndrome, and you'll no longer be at risk for one of those. Now, in 2023, 3.1 million U.S. residents died, and these is what the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention said were the top 10 killers. So what's number 1? Heart disease is the number 1 killer in our country and pretty much the whole world, okay? Number 2 is cancer. Number 3, accidents and injuries. Some of those we cannot control, right? Strokes, yeah. Chronic lower respiratory, this can be including things like COPD, Alzheimer's, diabetes, kidney disease. Most of this list is caused by inflammation. So basically, inflammation is the silent killer, and this is just how it's manifesting itself. And unfortunately, that's what resulted in a lot of premature deaths. Now, Time magazine that I was mentioning is a particular issue that came out, this one was in 2023, an article called "Inflammation May Be the Culprit Behind Our Deadliest Diseases." It had this very fascinating quote in it, and it just caught my attention. Research reveals that persistent low-level inflammation, which is twice as common as elevated blood cholesterol levels, plays a part in every stage of heart disease, including increasing the risk of plaque rupture, which leads to heart attacks. In fact, half of all heart attacks occur in people with what? Normal cholesterol levels. That surprised me. I thought, oh, you have high cholesterol, now you're going to get a heart attack. But this is saying even people who may have normal cholesterol could be at risk for heart attacks because of this inflammation that is at the cause of all heart disease. So, systemic inflammation in the body can damage, and this is why this is the case, it damages the epithelial cells. Those are the cells that line your blood vessels, and it makes it easier for fatty substances, plaque, to build up in those arteries, and that is what can cause the stroke or heart attack. So inflammation is destroying your blood vessels, and that's why heart disease is our number 1 killer in America. Now here's the thing, once one body function is struggling, and there's this disruption by inflammation in one area, it places stress on other parts of your body. So if you have one chronic inflammation, you're more likely to develop another one. And then you may have 3 or 4 going at once. And this is why people who have rheumatoid arthritis are twice as likely to have heart disease. Because again, there's this correlation between these different forms of disease. Have you ever heard of a CRP test? Mm-hmm. So you get your blood work done. You can request to have a CRP test. It is a blood test that is checking the inflammation in your body. It's a protein produced by your liver. It's found in your blood plasma. And it's a biomarker for how much inflammation is in your body and what your risk factor is for cardiovascular disease. So it's a good one to have checked, because if it's high, it means you are in the danger zone. You could have a stroke or you could have a heart attack unless you get this thing under control. So have your CRP checked, your C-reactive protein, we call it. Now, I found this article from 2022 on the National Cancer Institute website. I was trying to see, is there a correlation between inflammation and cancer? And this is what I read. It tells in this article that in 1863, which is a long time ago, a German pathologist observed that there was an increase in white blood cells in cancerous tissues, indicating an inflammatory response. As a result of his observations, he suggested cancerous tumors start at the sites of chronic inflammation. And the article states, there at the bottom, inflammation is considered to be the hallmark of cancer. So this made sense to me. I thought, if you have chronic inflammation in your gut, you could develop colon cancer, right? So we may be developing cancers in locations where our body is already in an inflamed state. And it makes sense. Invisible inflammation simmers quietly inside apparently healthy people, and it can become the breeding ground for nearly all diseases. But the opposite is also true. Chronic inflammation can be reduced and largely eliminated, preventing disease. Now, what causes chronic inflammation? There are several different answers you can give here. An infection can lead to a chronic inflammation. You know, a lot of people, when they had COVID, they had afterward what they called it long haul COVID. Long haul COVID just meant the inflammation didn't go away, and it's still manifesting itself in different ways. Environmental toxins and chemicals, they're all around us, right? These can cause inflammation. Agricultural glyphosate, this is one that I don't hear enough about, but farmers spray stuff over their fields, often at the beginning of the season to kill weeds and all this, but we just recently realized that at the end of the season, rather than taking the grain to a dryer, they'll go back and spray glyphosate on it right before harvest to dry it out. And then it doesn't evaporate or anything, it's just right on the corn or the grain or the soy or whatever it is you're eating. So unless you're getting something organic, you could be getting glyphosate, and there's a lot of inflammation that causes. Chronic stress, smoking, alcohol. We don't have time to get into all of those or talk about what we can do about them. We're here tonight talking about the last one, which is diet, because that's one we really can control. So your standard American diet is, it is sad. Yeah, that is sad. It's high in saturated fat, sugar, salt, additives, colorings, all that stuff. It's very highly processed. It's very low in fiber. And remember we were talking about that C-reactive protein, CRP? So in 2013, they did a review of 46 different individual studies. And all these 46 studies revealed one thing, that CRP, or C-reactive protein, this inflammatory marker, is elevated in the meat-based Western patterns of eating. So people eating this are having high CRP, which is what we would have already concluded. Now, what is it about this sad diet that makes it so inflammatotory? Well, there's a few things. One of them is refined carbohydrates. There isn't anything wrong with wheat unless it's been sprayed with something. But the problem is that they take a whole grain. Tonight you had whole wheat naan. Now, if you went and bought naan at the store, it would not be whole wheat, right? It's white flour. And I like the whole wheat. It has a nutty taste to it, doesn't it? And it kind of fills you up because you ate all that fiber and you got all the good nutrients in there and all that grams. Yeah, but white processed flour is found in products like bread, pasta, pastries, and all these contribute to inflammation due to high glycemic index. So because there's no fiber in it, when it hits your bloodstream, your blood sugar just goes poof up the roof, and then you, when that spikes, it creates this pro-inflammatory response, and that's what leads to diabetes. Okay, so just by making one change and replacing refined carbohydrates with whole grains, you can eliminate a lot of this. So rather than buying white bread, look for something that says 100% whole wheat. And if it has, and be aware that some things are tricky. It will say multi-grain, and you'll look at the package and it has 9 different grains mixed in it. You're thinking, oh, this is really good. It's got millet, quinoa, and flax, and blah, blah, blah. But the first ingredient is still white flour. So look for something that is actually whole wheat, and that's best. When you buy pasta, look for 100% whole wheat pasta, or go with something that's even gluten-free, like chickpea pasta or something. So making some of these changes can help with removing those refined carbohydrates. Another thing in this diet is lots of sugar and high fructose corn syrup. Too much sugar promotes inflammation. There are a lot of studies about that. We don't have time to get into all those tonight. But this inflammation is very damaging to your blood cells as it's metabolized. And sugar can promote overgrowth of harmful bacteria in your gut, and that will create inflammation. So sugar, and we've talked back in January, was it January? It was last year, I don't remember. Last year, we did a class on winter wellness. You can find that presentation on our Facebook page. And in that video, you'll see that I talked about how sugar and your immune system, that when you eat sugar for the next 4 hours afterwards, your immune system is like cut in half. And most people eat a little bit of sugar all day long through sodas and drinks and snacks and candy bars and whatever. So their immune system's always in a suppressed state, which is why it's very easy to get sick. And you see children that are sick all winter long. And this is the #1 reason. So another subject, winter wellness, but sugar. And then you have the other big culprit here is fats. Saturated fats are the primary fat in meat and dairy. Someone was asking me tonight, what is wrong with so much with dairy? This is the main thing, saturated fat. This is known to promote inflammation. And then they also have some trans fats, not tons. Mostly you find trans fats in foods that are trying to be shelf stable. They put in something called partially hydrogenated oils. And think margarine or shortening. These are where you find those. Fried foods like donuts and fries, cakes, frozen pizzas, cookies. These is where you'll often find trans fats. And all these cause your cholesterol level to go up, your bad cholesterol, and your good cholesterol to go down, and this triggers inflammation throughout your body. So watch the fats in the foods that you eat. So in contrast to the SAD diet, the whole food plant-based diet greatly reduces inflammation. In 2015, a study looked at 600 people who were put on a whole food plant-based, and they saw that their CRP levels just plummeted along with total cholesterol, blood pressure, BMI. Everything just started going back to normal levels as soon as they just went from standard American diet to whole food plant-based. So what are some of the benefits? Well, one, it's much lower fat. As we've already said, you don't have the trans fats and the saturated fats. You do not find those in, well, there are a few saturated fats you can find in things like coconut and palm oil, cocoa butter, I think. But for the most part, you find very little. And there's low bacterial load in contrast to animal products that have a lot of bacteria, especially the way they're processed in the meat industry. And these bacteria create toxins in your body called lipopolysaccharides. And when these lipopolysaccharides enter your bloodstream through your intestinal wall, they just wreak havoc on your body, causing systemic low-grade inflammation. So just by cutting meat and dairy out, you're eliminating so much. You won't get those lipopolysaccharides. It is beautiful, isn't it? I just love this picture in contrast to the last one. Right? It's so inviting. Plant-based diets build good microbiota or good bacteria in your gut that fight inflammation, and they're loaded with phytonutrients that contain so many anti-inflammatory properties, and we'll look at some of those here in a minute. But there's one other reason a plant-based diet is so very important for fighting inflammation, and it's fiber. You only get fiber from plants. There is no fiber in meat or dairy or eggs. None. Fiber only comes from plant sources. Fruits, vegetables, grains, beans, seeds, all these. And there are two types of fiber, soluble and insoluble. You may have heard those terms before. Soluble fiber dissolves in water, and creates this gel-like substance. It is absorbed into your body. It's what transports all these good nutrients in. It slows your digestion, so you feel full afterwards. When you eat a high fiber dinner or lunch, you're not hungry for the next 4 hours after that. If you ate a bunch of refined carbohydrates, like you had a donut for breakfast, 2 hours later, you're starving because there was no fiber there to hold you and satisfy you. So fiber is good for that. It keeps glucose levels good. So if you're diabetic, fiber is what's going to keep your blood sugar from spiking and dropping, and it helps with weight loss. Now, the other form of fiber is insoluble fiber, and we often think of that as just that's just the roughage stuff. But this roughage stuff, which is really good for you, is not just for helping your bowels move along. It actually cannot be absorbed by your body, but when it gets to your large intestines, your microbiota or your microbiome, your good bacteria, just feed on it. This is what they eat. They love this stuff. Fiber, they just eat it up. And as they're eating up all this fiber, they start producing something that you can use and do need. And those are called short-chain fatty acids. Anybody ever heard of a short-chain? I never heard of these things until just recently. But these are amazing. So what these short-chain fatty acids do is they protect your gut wall, your intestinal wall, and they prevent leaky gut. Now that's a term you may have heard of more recently because it's kind of a little bit of a buzzword going around these days. But basically what leaky gut is just that. It's a gut where the walls of the intestines are not tight. All these cells are not tight, and so things can slip through. And what's slipping through is either toxins or bacteria. Let's say you had a steak and maybe there was some bacteria in that steak. That bacteria slips through and gets into your bloodstream. Food particles can slip through, and those can be considered toxic. So having a very tight gut lining is so important. And if you have a low fiber diet, you're not producing enough short chain fatty acids, and you're going to have leaky gut, and you're going to have inflammatory responses. And those are associated with IBS, diabetes, chronic kidney dysfunction, cancer, cardiovascular, all of that stuff. Now there are a couple other things I found that besides fiber that can cause leaky gut. Food sensitivities, we'll talk a little bit about those at the very end. Chemotherapy and radiation, overuse of alcohol, NSAIDs such as aspirin and ibuprofen. These can also cause leaky gut, so watch out for those. Now the last thing that these short chain fatty acids do is they produce something called regulatory T cells, or Treg cells, which are a type of white blood cells that help regulate your immune system by preventing your immune system from going out of control. So we were talking about autoimmune, where your immune system starts to attack your body. These regulatory T cells prevent that. They help your immune system to do what it's supposed to do, fight the enemy, not fight you. So if you don't have good fiber, you're not getting short chain fatty acids, and you're not getting these, and you may be causing your autoimmune conditions because of that. So coming back to fiber, this is the key to fighting inflammation. The recommended daily allowance of fiber. Anybody have a guess how many grams you think a day you should have of fiber?
30? 30 to 50?
That is a very good guess. You must have read up on that. Yeah, the RDA right now is saying for men it's about 30 to 35. They say for women just slightly less than that. I think you would do even better with more than that. You know how the recommend daily is sometimes like the minimum amount you should be getting, but you can sometimes get a lot more than that. I was hearing in a study that in certain countries in Africa, their fiber intake is more like 50 grams, and they have zero gut issues or colon cancer. It just doesn't exist in their country, but their fiber intake is so high. So, but the average American is really getting about 16, so about half of what you should be getting. So how can you up your fiber? Well, just eat more like you ate tonight. You ate tons of fiber. I should have sat down and counted up how many grams of fiber you ate tonight. But there were fiber in your chickpeas. There was fiber in the red lentils. You had 2 forms of protein tonight. Both of those had lots of protein. Fiber in your cauliflower. Your dates had lots of fiber in them. The peanut butter and the coconut, all of those things had fiber in them. So just looking here on this picture, broccoli, 5 grams of fiber in a cup. You don't think of that as a high fiber food, but it is. Black beans, all your beans have lots of fiber, 15 grams in 1 cup of beans. The avocado, that half of an avocado has 5 grams of fiber in it. 1 ounce of almonds, 3.5 grams of fiber. A tablespoon of chia seeds, 5 grams of fiber. A cup of quinoa, 5 grams of fiber. Brown rice, like you had tonight, 3.5 grams of fiber in 1 cup. If you had used white rice instead, you would have only gotten half of a gram. So see, just by switching from white rice to brown rice, you went from half a gram to 3.5 grams, right there. Oatmeal, 1 cup, 4 grams of fiber. And now, not only do plant foods produce lots of fiber, they also have these compounds that fight inflammation called polyphenols. And I hope you all know this word by the end of tonight, because this is such an awesome thing that God put in all these vegetables and fruits. So polyphenols are antioxidants. That's a term you probably have heard of. Antioxidants. And basically what they do is they block oxidative stress that triggers inflammation. And there are so many things that create stress on our body. And these are the things that help mitigate that so that your body doesn't go into inflammation. Polyphenols are the most in plants that are darker colors. So if you're thinking cabbage, purple cabbage is going to have more polyphenols than white cabbage. Okay, so look for those dark colors. So let's, yeah.
What about the fibers that you put in your water or coffee in the morning? Are those good at all to take, or?
Well, they're not the best for you. You're adding roughage, but there is no nutrition in that. So if you sat down and ate a grapefruit for breakfast, you got as much fiber as you might have gotten in that tablespoon of stuff that you added, but you're also getting all these antioxidants and all these polyphenols. So replace, the only reason those things were created is because people want to eat the standard American diet, and yet they're clogged up and they can't go, and they're I'm constipated, I need to take fiber. I'll take this powder, or this psyllium husk, or Metamucil, or whatever those are. Just eat more plants, and you'll get all the fiber you need. Okay?
And if you look at the ingredients on there, There's a ton of ingredients on there.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, it's not just.
It's not just roughage.
Okay.
It doesn't even taste good. This stuff is much better tasting, right? So eat an apple and keep the skin on it, right? You get polyphenols there and more fiber. Grapes, red grapes, purple grapes especially, have a lot of polyphenols. You'll see studies about wine, and I personally follow more what the Bible says about drinking wine. It's not the best for us. You can gain all the polyphenol benefits by just eating grapes without having the fermentation stuff of the wine. Plums, pomegranates, citrus fruit, these are all great forms of polyphenols in fruits. Berries, all of them, blueberries, blackberries, elderberries, strawberries, raspberries, a lot of these are also very high in vitamin C. There's some amazing studies about cherries out there. I love cherries. I love to go up to Traverse City and pick cherries. Come home with a truckload of cherries and put them in my freezer. Sweet and tart cherries, both, they've done studies showing that they lower CRP. You've heard maybe of drinking tart cherry juice and the benefits of that. So that's why. Very good for reducing inflammation. Nuts, almonds, walnuts, pecans, all of these with their skins on, lots of polyphenols. Flax seeds, your beans, particularly, these are the higher ones, soy, black beans, white beans, and lentils. You had red lentils tonight. Whole grains, wheat, oats, rye, these all have lots of polyphenols. And then a couple others, herbs. So we mentioned herbs and spices tonight. What was the herb that was in the salad?
There was basil,
Basil,
parsley,
and
mint.
mint. So you had several herbs right there, and it was so good, wasn't it? I was thinking I'm gonna make that this summer when the mint and the parsley is coming on my garden, and the cucumbers and all that. Oh, it's gonna be so good. And then in the red lentil curry, you had curry powder. There was cumin. There was cumin on the roasted cauliflower. So all these spices, these are actually the highest forms of polyphenols you can get is in spices and herbs. So the more you can put these in your dishes, the more antioxidants you're getting. And they add great flavor too. So start an herb garden this summer. Olives and extra virgin olive oil are good forms of polyphenols. And then one that we all had tonight on our date treats, dark chocolate. So there's one in there. Now, the thing about dark chocolate you have to watch is that it often will have dairy and sugar, which kind of defeat the benefit of the good dark chocolate. So that's why we like some of those stevia sweetened dark chocolates. Okay, now let's talk about a couple other super ones. And this is curcumin. It is the polyphenol found in turmeric. This is a potent anti-inflammatory. If you've heard anything about anti-inflammatory foods, this is probably the one you heard about, turmeric. It fights oxidative stress. It does act as a blood thinner, so that could be a good thing unless you're already on a blood thinning medication. If so, taking a lot of turmeric could thin your blood out even more. But if you are wanting to take more of a natural form of blood thinner, talk to your doctor and say, can I take turmeric supplements instead of all this other blood thinner medication? And maybe you can move toward a more natural way to do that. Cooking with turmeric is not going to create that so much because you're not getting as much. We're talking about supplemental form. And if you are having a lot of inflammation issues, it would be good to take curcumin as a supplement because then you're going to get higher dosages. You can do that in tincture form or extract. You can occasionally find turmeric in the grocery store. Kind of looks a little bit like ginger. You can grate it. You can put it in things. It's very good. And there are a lot of studies showing it's helped with endometriosis, IBS, arthritis, psoriasis, depression, atherosclerosis. So it's an awesome one. I like to put my scrambled tofu. You ever make that? Gingerol. This is a polyphenol found in ginger. Has a lot of anti-inflammatory properties. Reduces CRP. So many amazing things about ginger. It's very good for your immune system. A 2022 study published in Molecules found that taking ginger supplements lessens the symptoms of chronic inflammation disorders like rheumatoid arthritis, irritable bowel, lupus, psoriasis, and cancer. So there are different ways you can take ginger. You can put it in your food like your red lentil curry tonight, or you can take it as a tea. Just slice a little bit of ginger in some hot water, bring it to a boil, and then strain out the ginger. You can add a little honey to it if you want. And this is really good for your immune system. It's good for digestion. If you have indigestion, turmeric is awesome for that. And you're getting all that anti-inflammatory benefit as well. Another polyphenol that is really powerful is quercetin. And this one is antihistamine, antioxidant, antiviral, antimicrobial, anti-cancer, antihypertensive, and anti-inflammatory. It's an amazing polyphenol. And one of the best places to find it is in onions. Now here's a study that was done in 2021 looking at quercetin and how it attenuated or lowered symptoms of rheumatoid arthritis, IBS, MS, and systemic lupus. So it's amazing things that that one has done. But like I said, onions are one of the richest sources, and yellow onions contain the most at 300 milligrams. So we'll talk about the broth you had here in a moment, because the other ingredient in there was garlic. Garlic, you know, probably in realm of immune system, boosting your immune system. But the quercetin that is in it is good too. It doesn't have as much as onions. It does have these sulfur compounds called allicin, which is the anti-inflammatory part. And a lot of clinical trials have shown that this has a lot of help even with arthritis. A review of 83 trials looked at the consumption of garlic and saw that it adjusted biomarkers of many types of diseases. So garlic is just amazing all around. To get the best benefit of garlic, you want to crush it, chop it, whatever, and like let it sit there for 10 minutes before you cook it. And this, there's something about when you break it apart, it releases this allicin, which is the anti-inflammatory part of it. So crush it, let it sit, then put it in your stuff. If you're making like a salad dressing, you're just putting it in raw, you're fine. It's just if you're gonna cook it.
Do you know if the garlic that you buy at the store in the little jars, is that?
It has been
It's not the best.
Really?
If you want to do something, you could crush your garlic, put it maybe in a little bit of olive oil and store it in a jar in your fridge that way. I don't know if the properties lessen over time, but it's going to be a way more fresh than that cooked. It doesn't even look like garlic. It looks brown.
You can also grate it and put it in olive oil and freeze it in ice cubes.
Yes, you can. That's a good way to do it too. Yeah, so tonight I had you try a little bit of healing broth. This is actually a recipe we got from the autoimmune therapeutic protocol we're on right now. And it's good for healing your gut. It's good for healing inflammation in your body. It's good for boosting your immune system. So many benefits, but it's very easy. You just cut an onion. You don't even have to chop it up, just like chunks. And a couple garlic cloves, mash them a little bit. Put that in some water, 3 cups of water, and just bring it to a boil, simmer it for about 15-20 minutes. Then strain out all the solids and drink that. You can drink hot or cold, but it's very healing and will make you feel
What's the mineral salt?
Mineral salt just means something like Himalayan pink salt or Celtic salt. Those are called mineral salts. Another polyphenol, no, this isn't a polyphenol, this is a pigment in beets, but it's what gives them their colors. It's called betalain, and they have done studies on this and shown it reducing inflammation and free radical protection. So there's so many kinds of beets. I love beets. This particular kind of beet with the red circles inside is so cool. Yeah. So look, yellow beets, all of these are so awesome. Plant some beets this year and eat the benefits of those. Omega-3 fatty acids is another one I wanted to mention because Omega-3s repair cell damage caused by inflammation and have been shown to be very helpful for autoimmune diseases. And there are plant sources for these: flaxseed, chia seeds, hemp seeds, and walnuts. You can get them. I like to grind them up. You can buy flaxseed meal already pre-ground. They do say that the benefits in it kind of dissipate after it's been ground for a while. So I just like to have a little seed mill, like a coffee grinder is basically what it is. I just want the coffee. But I put my seeds in there and just zip, 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 and it turns it into that. Or I'll put it straight into a smoothie or whatever. Sprinkle it on your food. You make chia pudding. I think that's what that is a photo of. Overnight oats. These all have chia seeds in them. And then the last big food group I will mention is cruciferous veggies. You had cauliflower tonight, but there are many: broccoli, cabbage, turnips, rutabaga, radishes, kale, Brussels sprouts, arugula, pak choy, collard greens. These are all cruciferous vegetables. They contain sulforaphane, which prevents oxidative stress, fatigue, and inflammation. And cruciferous vegetables are very good for fighting cancer and preventing cancer. So eat as much cruciferous vegetables as you can every day. One of my favorite people on cancer is a guy named Chris Wark, who wrote a book called Crispy Cancer. And in his protocol, he ate like 3 to 5 cups of cruciferous vegetables every single day. And this is how he fought cancer, a more natural way. So eat as much cruciferous stuff as you can.
And it is cooked or raw?
I think it's best, you can do both. Raw is always best because you're gonna get a lot more, although with some people who maybe have digestive, like sensitive digestion, they might have it easier to, or thyroid issues, it's better to have it cooked. So.
And that picture up there, that's edamame, not peas, right?
This is
Brussels
Brussels
sprouts.
sprouts.
From here, I thought it was.
Yeah, those are Brussels
Yeah.
sprouts. So here's one of my favorite ways to get inflammation fighting from the very beginning when I get up. I'll do this about 3 to 5 times a week. I get my blender, I pack it full with greens, and I will switch it up depending on what I want to get that week when I go to the store or what's growing in my garden. Spinach, kale, Swiss chard, bok choy, lettuce, nab cabbage, all of these. If you can grow greens, they don't take up a lot of space. You can grow them on your deck, on your porch, in your flower beds. Grow greens and then freeze them if you have an abundance of them. Right now my freezer has like 4 big bags of Swiss chard from my Swiss chard last fall when it started everything started to freeze. I just harvested the rest of it, bagged it up, and I'm still putting organic Swiss chard from my garden in my smoothies in the morning. So if your kale's prolific, just freeze it or dehydrate it and put the powder in. But anyways, greens, frozen berries, whatever your flavor desire is, a banana, 2 tablespoons of chia or flax seeds, and then I sometimes will add a protein powder if I'm just wanting to kind of hold myself a little more through the morning. This is my favorite brand, Orgain. It's a pea protein, and it's got a lot of superfoods. It's organic. It's a very healthy, clean one. So smoothies are a great way to, you're not going to sit down every morning and eat a huge salad. You just won't. You might have a salad for dinner, a salad. But if you do a smoothie, you can get like a ton of veggies down the hatch very easily. And it's gonna fill you up and just give you anti-inflammation starter every day.
And it tastes good.
And they taste good. We like to switch it up. Sometimes we do dark chocolate, cherry, strawberry, vanilla, like blueberry. I know we change it, and so it's every day. It's like, oh, I've even done frozen pear, a little cinnamon in there, and a little pumpkin. I know, but we make it whatever. So our funny thing is, I'll make it. And he's like, "What's the flavor today?" You know, it's fun. Okay, so I told you I would end with mentioning something about food sensitivities. while most fruits and vegetables have anti-inflammatory properties, there are some that contain some compounds that can trigger inflammation in certain individuals. These often are those in the nightshade family: tomatoes, eggplant, potatoes, and peppers. They contain solanine, which is a compound that can cause inflammation, particularly in those with autoimmune or arthritis. So I've heard people who have arthritis often have to avoid nightshades because it creates more inflammation for them and pain. So if that's something you're dealing with, try cutting those out and see if you feel a lot better. Other foods that sometimes are inflammatory is corn, wheat, gluten, basically, soy, dairy. Now, there's a difference between food allergies and food sensitivity. So, some people can't eat peanuts, have an allergic reaction. Food sensitivity is not quite the same thing. You may not even notice it. It might just be more like a light headache, or just a little brain fog, or just a little aching. It may not be a big symptom. So until you do a food sensitivity test to see what your body reacts to, you may not even know what your sensitivities are. So that could be a good thing to do. If you feel like you're dealing with some kind of a condition, to do one. We did one through a company called Meridian Valley Labs. There's another one called Enthero Labs. But there's lots of places where you can get these done. It's best to do the ones that is blood, not hair samples. And there's a stool one too. There's some different variations. You'll get different results from different ones, but that can help you find out what you're sensitive to. And if you cut those things out, that will help prevent the leaky gut and some of those inflammations.
Could you repeat that?
Marianne
Yes.
Normstand.
The one was called Meridian Valley Lab, and the other one is Entero Lab, Entero Lab. The Meridian Valley Lab looked at 400 different foods and spices and herbs and all kinds of things. So.
Just because one of my coworkers, I think she's sensitive to some of the foods, and
She's trying to figure out which
Yeah.
ones. Yeah, that could be very helpful for her.
thank you.
So, kind of in conclusion, remember, food is your medicine, and because you eat multiple times a day, every time you pick up a fork and bring it to your mouth, you have the opportunity to starve off inflammation. And that's really great, right? That's so exciting. The Bible tells us that God gave us the best foods to fight inflammation. And here in the very first chapter of the Bible, God said in Genesis 1:29, "Behold, I've given you every plant yielding seed that's on the face of all the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit, you shall have them for food." And Genesis 3:18 says, "You shall eat the plants of the field." So plants were the original diet, and science is now confirming that these are the foods that prevent inflammation and disease. So what a caring God that we have, that He gave us such a wide variety of healing foods, right? There's so much variety you can try. I tried for the first time recently a new fruit I'd never had before, and it was called guava, I think it was. It was it had black little seeds inside or whatever.
Yeah.
It was really good, and I was like, wow, I would like to go somewhere where these actually grow in the wild, because I imagine they'd be so much better. But so much variety God has given to help us heal. But, unfortunately, our diets have not always included an abundance of inflammation-fighting foods, and we've eaten processed food in that sad diet, and we don't feel well. And so this prayer of King David might be exactly how you feel. My wounds are foul and festering because of my foolishness. My loins are full of inflammation. There is no soundness in my flesh. Lord, all my desires before you, my sign is not hidden from you. Don't forsake me, O Lord. O my God, be not far from me. Make haste to help me, O Lord, my salvation. Kind of a prayer of desperation, isn't it? And sometimes when your health is at that point, you're like, God, help me, please. I know I was foolish. I've been eating the wrong way, but would you help me feel better? And here's the good news. God cares about you, and God is there to help you. And if you pray a prayer like this, God will be there to assist you. And this is what He promises in Jeremiah 30:17. I will restore health to you and heal you of your wounds, says the Lord. And then I love these words of Jesus in John 10:10. And this is where we got our name as a health team, the Abundant Life Health Team. The thief does not come except to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they might have life and have it more abundantly. You see, the food industry has stolen away our health, but Jesus came to provide you with abundant life. And I want to experience that, and I hope you want to experience abundant life too, because that's not existence, that's thriving, right? Vibrancy. So here as a health team, we want to support you with that. And so I mentioned that you had a little sheet that we gave you tonight. This is something that we just recently felt impressed to do. It may not be for all of you. It may only be for a couple of you. But you may be at a place in your journey where you are really wanting to make some changes, and you just feel like if you had a little bit of help, you could maybe get there a little faster. And so we decided we're going to do an 8 weeks to better health. We can start it whenever you're ready to start it, but these are the components that we are going to include in that. Going through 8 study guides that deal with health topics. They give practical health tips as well as biblical principles, because the Bible talks a lot about health and it can help us to experience abundant life. So while you're connecting with the Creator God who made your body, you're also learning about how to take care of your body. So you'd have 1 lesson a week you would do on your own. And then we would provide you with some weekly recipes so you can try some new things that week and see how you like them and incorporate some new recipes in your week. And then another one is health partner coaching. And I think I may have, this is actually the slide I wanted to put up there. It's up there twice because I didn't want to miss this one. Take you on a shopping trip. We're going to go to Meijer and we'll just walk through the store and look at what we would buy and help you find things and kind of learn how to navigate away from the junk to the good, right? And sometimes just kind of get some ideas that way. And then some regular, we're going to come consults. We're not like official dietitians or anything, but we know a lot about nutrition. We know a lot about health, and we can help you talk about what you're wanting to do, what your health goals are, and give you some suggestions, and then be there to encourage you in your journey to making those changes. So if that sounds like something that you would say, oh, I've been looking for something like this, write your contact info down there, let us know, and we'll be in touch with you to make that happen. Yes, it's this little sheet right here, and put it in the basket over there before you leave. Okay. I was going to see if we had a time for a testimony or two, but I don't think we have any time really for that. But if anybody has a quick, I told you when I saw you, I might have you share something very briefly.
I don't, I'm still in the process, because I just started it on Lent, doing the Eat for Your Blood Type.
Yeah.
And I'm a blood type A, which is huge for heart issues, inflammation, arthritis, all that stuff. So I've been trying to do that, which is more plant-based.
Yeah.
They have like 3 categories, which is your beneficial, highly beneficial, neutral, and avoid. And so I'm just trying to follow that.
So tell me what benefit you've gained so far.
Not a whole lot yet, other than I'm losing weight.
Okay.
I've lost 15.2 pounds. So
That's
Oh.
huge.
That's huge. We were talking a little bit about this too. I'm also on a lot of medication, so that's what I'm trying to get off of.
Yes.
Because I think that's some of it that I don't know if I really have a lot of. Do I have full body inflammation, or am I getting all this from my statin that I'm on?
Yeah.
You know, so I want to get off of that. I want to get off the NSAIDs. I want to get off the cholesterol meds, you know, so that's why I'm doing this. So it's kind of an experiment, so.
Well, it sounds like it's starting to work, and keep it up, you know, and that's what we're here for. We're here to encourage you. If you're on that journey, keep going, don't give up. You want to say something briefly, Steve?
No, just on that point though, it is an experiment. You know, you have to, no one knows what you are dealing with more than you. You know, you go to a doctor, they don't know you. It's like you live with it every day. You have a better insight as to what you need, especially when you're looking at it and testing things out and say, wow, this really made a difference. This not so much. And just keep adjusting. So that's what we're doing. It's
And share briefly what you're gaining from your anti-inflammation.
well, we started with the notion, because I was getting really sore muscles. I couldn't do anything without having just like not a good sore. You know, there's like a good sore after you work out. This wasn't a good sore, and it's completely gone since we started doing this. Like
Your heel pain.
Heel pain gone. If I work on cement, it seems like it just draws pain into my heels. And I worked on the cement for 6 hours the other day, and I came home and she was looking at me like, what are you zipping around the house for? And usually I'm walking like this, you know. So some major health benefits for me right away. I did lose 10 pounds roughly, but just feeling better, and my strength is coming back. So inflammation's a killer, and honestly the biggest enemy is sugar. That's what is and maybe my blood type is worse. I know that book, and it's an excellent book, but sugar is my nemesis, and I love it. So
Which is why he was really happy to see the date treats.
yeah.
today.
Well, Teresa, she's my
All the
favorite
nice
person.
things you're talking about are-
Yes.
When you
Those are
were
bad.
talking about the CRP marker,
See,
when you request that, like to
Just,
the
you can ask,
doctor,
it's the C-reactive protein or the CRP.
how
Same with-
often would you recommend, like
Well-
say if you're a diabetic, like myself, I'm a diabetic, how often would you want to?
Well, I would have it tested initially just to see what it's saying. If it says that your CRP is in a good range, you just want to keep it there. If it's showing it as high, then you know there's some things to start working at and you probably have high triglycerides and high cholesterol and a couple other things that usually go with that package. So as you start working on bringing those levels back into a good number by eating like we're talking about, then you could go back and have your blood work done again and see if it's changed, and it probably will help.
Can I say
Thank
something
you.
about, I wanna
Yeah.
share something. So I went to see a, naturopath
Yeah.
doctor, and, he ordered all this blood work for me, and that was one of the things that
Yeah.
was ordered. And it was, in the middle.
Okay?
So it wasn't low, it wasn't high, it was basically
Moderate.
saying to me, like, watch it,
Yeah.
you know, to work on it. So anyway, I, had an appointment at my family doctor, and, you know, nowadays everything's in my chart. So, the naturopath doctor, all of that did go into my chart. So the next time I went to my family doctor, they were like, oh, what are you doing? What's all this stuff? And why was this ordered? And they were like, this is ridiculous, and we don't even do that, and this is craziness.
You said,
and-
I'm being proactive.
And I did, and so I said, I
You
was
have to
worried
stand up
about
for
my
yourself.
CRP, I
Yeah.
said, it just goes to show, and that doctor said to me, oh, we don't even, there are too many different factors that can adjust that, and we're not even concerned about that.
You know, talking about that, you know, this was, I can't remember how many years ago. I remember reading up on the CRP, and I even told my family doctor if I could get that done. Why do you want it done? You know, like questioning
Yeah.
me. And I said, cause I'm diabetic, I wanna get off all these medicines, and I wanna see where I'm at.
Yeah.
And yeah, you have to be your
You
own
have to
advocate,
be
you
your
know,
own advocate, yeah.
which is.
And do your own research, like,
Yeah.
go look, if you have any one of these conditions we talked about, go do your own research and see what causes this, because every disease has a cause. And if you don't address the cause, then you don't resolve it, you just Band-Aid it with medication, and you never get it taken care of. So, do your study, eat the right way, ask God for wisdom, and you'll experience abundant life.
Amen.
And that's what we want for you.